Okay, everyone. Thank you for your attendance at today's WRC Transport Committee meeting. Right, we will start with KARAKIA. Thank you, Phil.
Morning, everyone. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tanga, kia makina ki te, kia makara ki tai, ehi aki ana te atukura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, he mauri ora.
Thank you, Phil. And just before we get into the work of the meeting, we'll just have a minute's silence to acknowledge the former chair of the Regional Council, Alan Livingston, who passed away. Okay, thank you, everyone. Alrighty, moving into the work. Apologies. We've got the apologies of Councillor Chris Hughes and Councillor Kataraina Hodge. Can I have a mover for those apologies, please? Thank you, Gary. Seconder. Thanks, Liz. Have we missed anyone off that list? Nope. All right, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, confirmation of the agenda. Thank you, Liz. Seconder. Thanks, Jen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Are there any other disclosures of interest? No, as there's none, we'll move on. No items for public forum. Sounds good. Alrighty, directors.
Are we just putting that in there for the sake of putting it there, or do we put it in only when we have someone planned to speak?
We put it in there as a placeholder to acknowledge that there is an opportunity for members of the public to come and speak if they wish to. Jennifer,
yeah, I think it's a good change. It's just that since it is new and it's not something the council does much, it would be good to promote it some way, because why would people know? Yeah.
I was just going to ask, what other council or committee meetings have a public address?
Regional Transport and the PT subcommittee as well.
But not strategy and policy?
All committee meetings can have a public deposition come to them.
Yeah.
You have that ability. It's just something we don't usually include it. Yeah. And then the agenda item if there isn't anyone.
Yeah. So that's what I'm asking the same. It seems peculiar. Yeah.
Something to take away. I don't think we need to dwell on it right now. Or you could organise someone to come and speak to us, no? I seem to be getting hundreds of emails from concerned people. So, all right, I'll hand over to you, Phil, for the director's report.
Yep, so we have Lorraine and Trudy here to take you through the report. We will pause and spend a little bit longer on the fuel topic that's on this report, as we're aware that there'll be some questions, but I'll let Lorraine and Trudy take you through this.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. The key points to note from the report are the national fuel supply issues. There's a record of our submission on at the Ministry of Transport's proposal to strengthen total mobility, and just some notes, some key work streams, being just an update and a record for the committee that we progressed the bus contracts renewal in the last between meetings of this committee, and there's some information on the Metro Spatial Plan program that overlaps a lot with some of the business of this committee. coming to the national fuel supply issues, you have to appreciate that we started writing this report, and when the agenda closed was at Easter. And reading back and preparing for the meeting, the agenda report is very light because of that time. So we've got Trudy here because obviously the supply issues mostly impact in terms of potential costs and the increases in the cost of diesel since preparing this report have been even more pronounced than what we probably might have expected. So I'd really just like to open it up for members to focus in on questions that they have.
Sorry, have you provided a report on the actual cost? Because I haven't seen one. Other than what's in this agenda. Is there a supplementary agenda setting out the costs?
No.
I understand you had some questions about the costs, though, if that's.
Well, can you give us your initial splurge on it, and we can then ask questions?
Trudy?
Yeah, through the chair. Look, in response, we've been monitoring closely the last month or two with this fuel crisis and working in with NZTA. As of yesterday, we had an indicative indexation figure that we've applied to our current contracts to understand the impact of that. And as we stand, we still have sufficient headroom within our budgets through to the end of this financial year to absorb this spiked uplift in indexation. And that's because we had been quite conservative around our indexation estimates back through the long-term planning and then the annual planning process of last year. Without sort of talking directly to the numbers, we are confident and have taken the position that we will be able to sustain the level of uplift through indexation through to the end of June. We have enough headroom there. When we turn our minds, if this is to continue on and the sustainability of being able to fund that additional cost that's coming at us, we will look to work through the annual planning process and assess what is required once we have more information out of the agency. We expect the publication of these indexation indices to come out mid-May. And then, as I say, we're working closely with them on what I guess mechanisms the government may look to take. At the moment, there is nothing in that space, but manage it at a local level. Back to the annual planning process, there is reserves. Well, there is a reserve which is specific to public transport, and it's at that point in time, if we are needing to add additional provision into our budget, it's the reserve conversation that would come into play in that annual plan discussion in May, I believe, if that makes sense. Yeah, but we are comfortable because we have been conservative. And I guess the other piece just to add is my teams have been working closely with all the data that we've got to turn that into information to enable us to compare where we're at today compared to this time last year, and monitoring that on a weekly basis. But also the other piece that we are seeing is that there is a lift in patronage, so there is more usage of our buses on certain routes as well. So that's generating additional fare revenue as well. So, you know, it's the whole equation as such. But where I sit today, we're comfortable and confident we will deliver within budget to the end of June. And moving forward into next year, it will be at that annual planning conversation that the reserves piece will be a discussion. But by then we will have a little bit more information as well out of central government on this topic, I would expect.
Question. Do our contracts allow for a surcharge to be charged by the operators for increased fuel costs?
So that is managed through the indexation. So every quarter there is a new indexation indice, and that's applied to our base contract value, and then that is charged on to our operators.
So that's set at a national level.
At a national level, and that's the mechanism that is well ingrained in the way we run our public transport operating model and contracts.
Does that mean they charge us, or that we charge?
We charge them.
We charge them if the costs go up.
Yes.
I'll talk about that offline.
Thanks, Ben.
So just to add to that, you'll be aware that through the annual plan process, we had talked about a review of our PT fares, which we undertake through our annual plan process every year. And in February, you supported a 10% rise in fares to occur around October. That will be a decision that you'll make at the May council meeting. So that's for bus. For rail, we proposed a similar 10% fare increase. And you've asked us to go away and do some more thinking about that. So in the May council meeting, you'll receive a paper that provides options around rail fares. At the time, that was related to fare box recovery, related to the trial. The situation has changed slightly, but I just wanted to put you aware that those are coming back to you as well.
Madam Chair, can we have clarity on that issue before we go too far, please? You've said that we on charge, so it's the indexation that central government come up with it that's costing this much more. So councils, you will on charge that as an increase in fare box recovery. No, so that's where I'm confused. So can we have that clarity, please?
Look, through the chair, the indexation component is applied to our base contract cost, and then whatever that difference is, and at the moment it's an increase because that indice is covering labour and fuel, road user charges are the main three drivers of that indice, and that change is applied to our base contract costs and then charged on to our operators. So well,
I think the confusion is coming with who pays.
yes.
So could you just clarify who pays the indexation?
Yes. So it is, yes, we pay. Sorry, it's the way I've been explaining it. Yeah.
It might be an internal way of explaining it, but to the external,
yes,
the cost is,
it's,
they're allowed to increase their charges to recover the increases.
So at a national
level,
increase their charges by the same amount.
Yes, a fixed amount set by government agency.
Yes.
So their invoice to us increases, and then of that, once the fare revenue is taken off, that cost is split between the government contribution and the local share.
I just wanted to explain it in
Yeah, no, thanks
terms
for that,
rather than internal jargon.
Sorry.
Thank you.
And
well, go to the next question. Warren.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, look, Trudy, I think it's good that you have confidence that there's headroom and there's reserves and that sort of thing. And what councillors are looking for is that confidence as well. And it would be nice to see some figures of that patronage growth. It's grown by 6% or whatever it is. But also those fuel costs now mean that the Te Huia costs so much more to run, or the bus runs cost so much more, because I know the public are legoiming you for that information, but it's something that councillors haven't seen or got. So it would be nice to get actually some of those figures so that we can get our heads around, okay, fuel's gone up. I was down in Wellington just recently. The chair down there knows 100% how much extra it's costing a day to run their buses, and he also knows how much the patronage has gone up. So it's that sort of information that I think councillors are looking for, so that we've got an idea in our mind, and it also then helps with that trend. Is that trend moving upwards? Has it flattened with patronage, with cost, etc.? So it's that confidence that we're looking for, understanding that you have it and there's reserves in place, etc. But it's that sort of information that we're looking at. And I know it's just a snapshot in time. And we don't want crystal ball gazing. That that will come as time progresses. But yeah, so it's that confidence that we're looking for, because we're being asked by the public too. Why haven't bus fares gone up? Because fuel's gone up. Et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I don't want it to always be a legoiment that's got to come through from the public. So if councillors know, then we can express that too. Thanks.
Thanks, Warren. Okay, we'll put that as an action point.
Yeah,
Cool. Thank you. Jen.
I was just wondering, I totally agree with what Warren said. The NZTA or Te Huru Kahika SIG, because this is an issue, fuel issues affecting the country. Is there any discussion with them in that group of this? And I mean, in particular, we call it a fuel crisis, and we are in a system where we're very set in 3-year cycles of what our routes and that kind of thing. At some point, it might make sense, and that obviously might be when the phases kick in, if they kick in. Is there a discussion happening to understand whether there's a point where we might want to vary routes or move more to ridership to make sure that the buses we are putting on burning their diesel in full of people as a bridge and or in more populated areas rather than I'm just wondering, is there any discussion?
Oh, absolutely. That's happening, taking up quite a lot of time through the TSIG, most certainly. And also, as Trudy mentioned, that we've been monitoring the data. So we are, the patronage data does come through in the ops report. So you are receiving that information. The costs, as I said at the time of just introducing this as a topic, diesel's probably gone up by 1/3 since then as well. So it's something that it will factor in, obviously, to what we've the annual plan considerations. And then in the meantime, we have that, and that's the purpose, I guess, of this committee, is to provide direction as to is the strategy to address what we know are probably long-term costs now. So we're trying to think about how elevated cost levels might impact on the operations over the longer term, rather than, I guess,
if NZTA lets it.
Okay, well, that's something I think we have to understand. We also have to understand how does public transport fit into the government's targeted, timely and temporary relief. And at the moment, not highly. So, I mean, is there a role for advocacy? Yes, of course there is. We're doing that. And also so to understand the impacts of elevated costs, which will come through the annual plan, and then how those costs are best met through fare increases, discussions on private share, or what services can maintain a level of service, but perhaps can be sacrificed for saving costs. And then that would depend on whether you're looking at maintaining a level of service of a ridership or coverage.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we are sending signals that we need to, we want to cater to the needs of our community, which might be changing over time. The fuel crisis. Yes. Yeah. It sounds like there's discussion happening, but I'm not hearing that.
Phil might be able to
landed.
Fill in a little bit more.
Yeah.
So Te Huru Kahika is monitoring this and is managing, being led by the corporate SIG. So there's a whole of Te Huru Kahika response being prepared and then responded to across all of the activities of all regional councils in one go, of which public transport fuel is one aspect. At a oversight level for the transport SIG, which is a group I chair, we're coordinating the thought about what are the different scenarios and how would every region respond to those. And it may not be the same in every case, but the creation of scenarios and then the thinking about longevity of those scenarios and then how you would rationalise a network or expand a network. Because there's two factors here. One is that public transport is becoming more popular at the same time that the funding to deliver it becomes constrained. There's a point where capacity runs out in the public transport system. So how would you add capacity to the public transport system is part of that. The other half of it is if you have a limited budget, where would you compact or reduce the network in order to fund improvements on other routes? So those types of scenarios are in development across the country at the moment, and we are coordinating that across regional council.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I can just add to that.
Yep.
So thank you. Yes, so obviously that Te Uru Kaihika piece is going on, and it has been from the start. And also mayors and chairs meet online with the ministers every 2 weeks. There's one tomorrow, just on the updates where they are with the fuel and then what we are seeing in the regions and in the towns. And as those requirements may change, you know, what ability there is to change and answers to come up to some of the, you know, solutions come up to some of the issues. So that work is going on.
Thanks, Warren. Noel, did you all have anything? No, that's fine. Ben.
Yeah, just to pick up on that, the Te Uru Kaihika report, when it's ready, would be useful to read. Because I still feel we're in a bit of a fog here. And so I note that the next Transport Committee won't be till after the May annual plan discussions. So can we have some updated information prior to?
So you've just asked for an action for us to provide that to you. So yes, we will be providing that to you from now on.
Not just through the Transport Committee.
No, we'll find a way of channeling that to you more frequently, maybe fortnightly or something if that's of use.
Robbie.
You're all talking about fuel increases and costs. But what happens in a state of the contracts when the fuel price drops? Do they lower their costs?
The indexation is set by NZTA. So the indexation.
So they make greater profits when fuel price drops?
Well, they're bulk buying fuel, so they're paying a hedged price. The agency controls this consistently at a national level. So the agency's indexation is what we're paying. That will go up and down. It won't go up and down every day as well. Oh, but it would, yes, it could go down as well as up. Could go down as well as up. It's currently every 3 months. Next one's in May.
Because yeah, like fuel dropped over back down to government will be buying mostly diesel at $2.70 a litre at the moment.
Jen.
Just a quick question. The Metro Spatial Plan, briefly, but I recall there was an action to actually brief us on it. I was wondering what the update was on that, because I just think it's important that the Waikato Regional Council Transport Committee is aware of what that looks like. It's a big piece of work that was done. It's very relevant for the work of this committee.
Yeah, good points. I think we've just touched on the fuel and we're going to go to the other points as well.
So that would be one.
Is that Lorraine? Is that right, Lorraine?
I know Hamilton City Councillors wanted the briefing as well, and we talked about whether that would be together or separate. I don't really mind. It's just both need to be across that piece of work.
Thank you. Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I think this is the first response to the interest in the committees to understand and have some visibility across. It just sets out the whole work program, which is quite extensive. And I think it notes at 28 that the governance sits in different areas, but direction will be sought from this committee from time to time on the various programs as that sits with this committee, and sometimes it is just vision and objective setting for those projects. This was just to put the whole program before you so that those items don't come too piecemeal. And there is another initiative that staff in the future-proof space have started working on, which is looking at doing some webinars to make available elected members across, the various councils, so that there is that extra resource to see what's happening in these projects, perhaps in other spaces than is coming to a particular committee.
So just to expand that, the future-proof team on the Transport Working Group is developing, based on requests that have come from this organisation, Hamilton City, from Waikato District and others, a series of short introductory webinar style presentations on the Huia Metrospatial Plan, the bus network, a range of other things, and they are in preparation now. Our plan is to share those with you all, and then have effectively a coordinated webinar where there will be a question and answer session on each of those, and that would be recorded. And both the information and the recording of the Q&A would be as a tool for every organisation then to use, which is around these topics.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good plan. When are you envisaging that would be happening? What's the estimate?
I'm not leading it, but I'm definitely being chased up for my contribution as we speak.
Thanks, Jen.
In a couple of months, perhaps. Okay.
Yeah, probably just to follow on from the MSP discussion. I was had a request from Keith's committee, the Regional Growth and Resilience Committee, around congestion charging, the impact of people in the environment on that congestion, and sort of what's been done to date. So if we could just add that to the action register as well, for that information to come back. I note in the MSP you've talked about park and rides as well. So yeah, more information on that would be gratefully received, perhaps through the future director's report.
Yes, but also that they are already things that we report through the Regional Transport Committee and the Regional Land Transport Plan Monitoring Programme. And there is a package report being prepared now for the June meeting that will updates on all of the targets and the measures for the RLTP. So this information is going to be out there through other channels as well. The key, I guess, is how collectively we coordinate this so that we're reporting on the same information in the same way, and then not having to redo information to present it in slightly different form. I think, Keith, you'll also be aware that the Regional Transport Committee, through its investment logic mapping sessions for the next RLTP, has been talking about congestion charging and time of use charging as a potential aspect of the strategic direction for the RLTP as well, and that will all be connected through. So,
thank you, Phil. Keith, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thanks, Angela, for bringing that up. It's quite an important thing at the moment, because it's being accentuated. But just would like to know whether there's any work done on tolling, time tolling versus traffic flow in our region, because that's, if we use tolling to fund the public transport, it's a nil-sum game. It doesn't affect anybody except movement of traffic. So if there's any work being done on that, I'd be really appreciative of seeing it. And if not, when will we do it?
in every other part of the country, those are conversations that have been led at city level primarily. We'll have to find out whether Hamilton has done their urban area. I don't know whether.
So maybe that's something, yeah, we can follow up. Okay. Gary,
question for Phil, just whether you received an email and whether now's the time to just profile on that. Well, it was the point of the Port Waikato.
yeah, probably under Item 6.4 would be
Okay.
good.
Yeah, second.
Thanks,
Good,
Gary.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lorraine and Trudy. Oh, did you, Liz? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how we were moving
know.
through the agenda. Hey, I've just got a comment actually, just on the public consultation on improvements to lane use. So I'm just mindful of when you travel around the world, you see a lot of alternative public transport options around scooters and bikes. And I'm not going to name any companies, but the green and the yellow, the red, those sort of colours all around. Now we have them here in the city, but we don't see them out in the region. And I'm just looking at the obviously the potential for that increasing and allowing people to ride e-scooters and cycle lanes. Now, I'm aware that to allow any external contractors to operate in any of our towns, it would require a contract with the city or with the district council. But I just want to highlight that a lot of the region does feel that those sorts of companies provide a lot of visual pollution. And I don't know what role we have here, if any. Potentially there's none, but just given I'm a newbie around the table, and what sort of engagement have we had in the past? And is there potentially a change to that situation, given that we're going to start to see more scooters and cycle lanes perhaps?
So I think that's a valid point. It does again sit pretty much with usually the city or the district councils, and that was one of the reasons why we didn't submit ourselves on this, because most of the administration and the issues are experienced at their level. But that's slightly different, I think, to what you're saying, is like how are we working collectively to ensure that we get, I guess, the optimum, travel choices for people with these other things, but not handing problems out to other people and doing so. I guess most of that again just falls into some of the work programs on a project basis, and mostly at this time in terms of the Metro Spatial Plan work. But it is something that we could specifically raise with Waipa in terms of the Cambridge Connections work that we are working with them. There's another report later on the agenda, and just to keep up the visibility and to understand, to make sure that we are with walking and cycling falling out of the GPS as an activity class. It's something that potentially all of us have suffered from a little bit of a lack of focus on, but we can certainly improve in that area.
Ben.
Oh, just three minor technical ones. So increasing the age at which children are allowed to ride bikes on footpaths, does that include in the central city?
Yes, footpaths.
Okay. And therefore, if they're allowed to ride on the footpath, do they not have to wear a helmet?
Same rules would apply. Still have to wear a helmet.
Okay, well, in that case, are we going to get e-scooters to start wearing helmets? Because, I mean, they go faster than the bikes often. I mean, is that something out of the consultation they're looking at?
No, the consultation was on lane use. I'm sure that issue would have been raised by a number of submitters, both the benefits and potential issues with it. As I said, we didn't. It's sort of the issues fall mostly to the territorial authorities as the infrastructure providers. We didn't submit.
Okay. It does note allowing people to ride e-scooters and cycle.
Just on that, on a different subject, Paris 17, one of the topics that this council has had quite a sense of interest in is putting stickers on the back of buses asking drivers to let buses out. That's been an issue through Hamilton, and you'll want to relitigate the whole bus stops in vehicle lanes discussion. This change that is proposed would mandate that, as opposed to it being voluntary. So I just thought that was an update worth giving to something you have through the advertising policy work and other things. A couple of years.
Well, thank you, Phil. All right. If there's no further questions on the director's report, I know there was a number of topics in there, so we will move on to the next one. I don't see any lights on, so thank you, Lorraine, and thank you, Trudy. All right. Thank you, Jen, and seconded. Thank you, Keith. All those in favour? Against? Carried. All right, on to the fares policy. Welcome, Catherine.
Morning, Chair and Committee. I will take this report as read, but I will just highlight a few things. So this is just a project update report, just to bring you along, I guess, on the journey on the fare policy review work that we are undertaking, which will feed into the RPTP review. We have received a draft issues and options report for this project, and we intend to have workshops with yourselves and the Regional Transport, the RTC-PT subcommittee as well in the coming months to workshop this project. Essentially what we are trying to look at is we are reviewing whether our fare policies, our tariffs, our fare structures at a policy level, at the RPT level, is future-proofed, really noting the changing environment in terms of private share, being compatible with NTS and our shift to motor move, but also being aware of annual plan deliberations and TUIA and things like that. So this is an adaptable, I guess, project. It's flexible with all the various ongoing work streams that are impacting this work. So yes, essentially this is just to give you, to plant this information in your head, noting that the draft issues and options report will be shared well ahead of time for the workshop that you have coming months, which is still to be scheduled.
Thank you, Catherine. Jennifer.
Just a bit of a question on motor move, which will hopefully come one day. Is it envisaged that every regional council will retain full control over its fare policy, or is there some signal that over time the people using the buses would expect for uniformity across the country? I'm just thinking, like, if I travel, and I realize it's all loaded onto your credit card or your card, but if it's kind of weird if I was to pay $3 in one region and then $8 in another region, and apparently it is quite higgledy-piggledy. Yeah, so is it looking like it'll just be one system but with a plethora of randomness within it, or is there an idea that over time it'll align?
I can make comment, but I stand to be corrected.
So,
anyway, maybe Phil can reply.
Just wondering how much control we have long term with that change.
So the plan for the technology is that every region will have its own fare tariff structure. I don't believe it's within the scope of the introduction of this platform to think about longer term. It's not a conversation I've been involved in.
Something that
I don't believe there's any active work on that in any discussion at the moment. So
something you could raise in the KARAKIA.
Well, I represent the 10 regions of the B card on the National Ticketing Steering Committee. So I'm directly involved in the whole. That isn't a conversation that's active.
No, I didn't. Oh,
yeah, it's just a question as to whether that.
I do have a speaking order as well. So if you've got some, shall I add you to the list now? Yeah, probably just to follow on from Jen's comments. I had a few, just on the concessions as well. I do recall reading about Minister Bishop's comments that, trying to get everyone's different regional concessions has taken a lot of time and effort and money. Yeah, probably from my point of view and what I've heard from users is just that consistency, sort of what you're saying as well, Jen, about traveling between regions for concessions in particular. I know that across New Zealand, we all have different ages of children. So getting that sorted would be good. Also Super Gold hours as well. And I know that a lot of people, I think it's just ourselves and Bad Plenty do the accessibility concession at the moment with the +1. So yeah, advocating for that to be spread nationwide would be top of my mind as well. But yeah, we'll wait to hear a bit more about the Motu Move moving forward. Liz.
Well, this is just probably an area of interest that I do have, and I'm looking forward to the workshops on this actually. But I think we also need to think strategically about how fares do impact users. You know, and one of the real red flags for me at the moment is for the 5,000 5,000 full car parks sitting at the University of Waikato, filled with uni students who aren't taking our buses. So that's directly, connected to our fears, and looking forward to sort of opening that lid and thinking about how we can get more students on buses and utilising. I'm sure the university have got some better ways to utilise their land than filling it with cars. So yeah, just want to highlight that's an area I want to sort of delve into.
Thanks, Liz. Gary.
So I'll probably come from a slightly different angle to that. And I'm just curious to know, within, I suppose it'll come up in the workshops, but do we actually have a fare box recovery percentage, target that we want? And because I look at what we're at, and can we reset those? Because if I look at the fuel issue which you discussed earlier on, surely the immediate hit is to the car user's back pocket, and so they'll hop on the public transport. And so we wanted some of that data to come through to see if that's evidenced. And so I suppose I trust more in the market, that if a private car is too expensive or if it's too difficult to drive a car, people will use public transport. So, but I also would like to make sure that we have a mechanism, and when we get to it, Angela, I'm not sure what the right time is, that we actually get to set the percentages of fare box recovery target that we want. Because and I suppose to that effect then is what degree of subsidy that we're comfortable with, and it'll be different for all of us, but I'm definitely not comfortable with our current fare box recovery.
Yeah, I believe that's already looked at through the private share targets.
Well, I was going to say right now the up until the beginning of the current fuel issue, the targets that were set were negotiated specifically with NZTA at a regional level. So we had a period of discussion through several committee meetings, and as a result negotiated a fare box target for the 3 years of this current 3-year plan. So the 10% rise I mentioned, which is part of your annual plan decisions, is us working towards achievement of the 26-27 year. Whether it's within this fares policy work or within the wider regional PT plan or within the long-term plan, there's definitely a conversation for you to have about what your aspirations are around fare box. And the agency will be interested in it from a minimum perspective, and if you choose to go above that, that would be something that I'm sure they wouldn't say no to, but that would be beyond their minimum as we get into that next round of negotiation. The only other thing I would add is that with the fuel issue that we currently have, the concept of private share is becoming far harder to properly understand, because those costs are changing all over the place at the moment, and we're seeing increased patronage, but we're also seeing increased costs. So my sense is that the targets that we're working to for this financial year are going to be less of a priority for NZTA right now than trying to keep buses running. But we'll see whether they come back to it either before the election or after the election through the government policy statement or somewhere else. But there's certainly a lot. There's been less focus on that in the last couple of months.
So if I could just follow up on that, and a fellow councillor got not quite hung, drawn and quartered for calling the council clunky or the organisation clunky at one of our previous meetings, but I suppose when I look at the private sector, and I know it cost me $178 more to take a truck and trailer from the Mount to Cambridge just in fuel consumption, and that's charged on immediately. And in the public sector, in this, we can't seem, and we had that discussion earlier on with Trudy, and that, it just seems to be so clunky to be able to pass on an immediate cost recovery, and we have difficulty to do that, to react quickly. And Warren alluded to it earlier on, we get questions, when we talk to our constituents, about how come I have these increases immediately and that doesn't happen, and so I suppose when we start, different councils talk about clunkiness, those are the frustrations that we see in the field, that we say we don't understand how this doesn't, and the answers that we got, I got to say, and I saw Noel shaking his head, were extremely difficult to follow, to say where it is and how it happens. So I think we just need a lot more transparency around all of that.
Thanks, Gary. Noel.
Thank you. And look, I take on board Jen's comments and your own, Angela. But for me, I'm concerned about the word communist thoughts came to mind, but everybody being equal is fine. So when you talk about the likes of children, sure, across the country, children should all be of a certain age, not 1 year older, 1 year younger. So that's consistency.
Yeah.
The time available for the
Supergirl.
grey-headed ones amongst us to use their cards, fine. But the reality, the cost of delivery within regions and within some localities is much higher or lower, and that is not consistent. So we must be inconsistent to be consistent. If you, hopefully you understand where I'm going. So you can't just hope for across the country everything is the same, otherwise the government might as well run it. If they want to have equity, it's not our business. So and just on the issue that's been raised, no, I'll leave it. We're hiding to nothing in cost recovery. But Gary, I will say something. The issue of immediate cost, the problem that we're in is that we're a public entity, and the difference between commercial reality, we get fertilizer delivered to the farm, bang, we get hit. The issue is public consistency and the shock absorbing nature of government. So it's been alluded to in the previous item about having a reserve rate, but when that reserve runs out, the brown stuff will hit the fan. So that's the only issue that I can accept, is that we're a public entity and therefore social responsibility. And that is a bit hard to swallow at times. So I just hope that when people ask for consistency, they be careful what you ask for, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, thank you, Noel, for those comments. I agree with the concessions comments, but maybe not the communist one. Jen.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been called one. Not that long, actually. No,
I didn't call you, but I came to mind.
No, I just wanted to clarify. It's the intention behind my comments was about keeping fares simple. So often we raise things in the fare issue, like we don't want $7.03 to be the fare that you have to pay. Make it $7 or make it $7.50 or something. Make it round. And my intention on making things across the country simpler is that it's not one model in one region about how you have to calculate it by zones and then another flat fare in a different region. Like just the dollar amounts can be different, absolutely. It's just whether the model of how you then think about it can be consistent over time, because making it complicated is one barrier to people using public transport. You can calculate how much petrol you put in the car. You know what that's worth. You can do it really quick in your head. You just don't want to turn up in a region and suddenly it just makes no sense because you're going to stop using public. I don't know where I was going with that.
Thanks for clarifying, Jen. Keith.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. I'd just like to follow on from Comrade Smith there. I think there's two levels of discussion here, and I just want to go back to Liz and her comment. There is a saying that don't ever lose the opportunity of a crisis. I think, and I'm probably asking, firstly, is there any spatial planning done on transport in terms of changing the social behaviour of people? Because as Hamilton grows, it's going to get more gridlocked, and we're going to have greater transport problems. So for me, I think we should be looking at like the point that Liz raised and start to work on it now. It's just nuts. 5,000 car parks at Waikato University. It's just nuts. So we have to bring in a pricing, or this is my view, we have to bring in a pricing policy to encourage the use of public transport, and that and also to try and get people to live where they work rather than, you know, people living in Hamilton travelling to Auckland, or a Tiara travelling to Auckland, that sort of thing. And so I guess I'm looking at you, Phil. Is there any spatial planning to try and make sure that transport works for us?
That is exactly what the Metrospatial Plan is for future-proof sub-regional area. So that was in brain note. That's exactly what that does.
Yes, certainly. That was also the intention of putting the information around the Metrospatial Plan. You could argue that in terms of those councils that are members of the Metrospatial Plan and the Future-Proof Initiative, the region is one of the more advanced in developing its integrated land use and transport planning, and a lot of the initiatives do sit with the district council and the territorial authorities in terms of obviously the land use provisions, but we work very closely on including providing input to what is now, I guess, starting to challenge some of that work that has been ongoing and is well ingrained through fast track consents, which are things that are, you know, beyond our control, but we still input in terms of how well integrated that would be for transport and how, to what greater or lesser extent it supports those outcomes.
So just
Keith, I'm wondering if we save that for the workshop.
okay.
Cool, thank you. Noel is
it's about.
last question, then I'm going to close this one off.
Has any consideration been given, raised this over the last 20 years with PT committee? It's light rail, Hamilton, and going from the base, which has got a wonderful station, and then you come through the city, Frankton, city, and out to the university. You're talking about 5,000 car parks. And perhaps if Tahuia falls over, we would have a train available to do that. So not wanting to raise red flags, but just have we actually started to think outside the square a little bit?
Yeah, I believe that thinking has gone through the whole MSP process, and it was decided that bus rapid transit was the best option for Waikato.
Through roads that have bus stops in them.
Yep, and that is the other point of lining up infrastructure and services, Noel, which we talk with our friends throughout the region about that. But as there's no further questions, we will leave it there and eagerly await the workshop. Thank you. Thank you, Warren. Thanks, Noel. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Alrighty, community transport is our next one. And I believe you are new to our committee. Welcome.
Thank you. Just before we kick off on the item, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, if I just introduce Tawfiq Ahmed. He has joined the Regional Transport Connections as our team leader of portfolio delivery. And with that, he has the programs that sit outside the, I guess, the planning projects that we do, which is includes community transport, total mobility that we're discussing later today, metro spatial plan, which we've been discussing, and Tahuia. And some of you will be familiar with him. He has worked previously for Hamilton City Council and Waipa District with Topik, sorry, not him, with Topik, and comes to us most recently from Kāinga Ora. If you would say a few words yourself.
Thanks, Lauren. There's a tough act to follow. So yeah, I'll try to do my best. But yeah, been in the council space for quite a while. Had a privilege to work with Liz on a couple of concept plans as well with the open spaces. But yeah, looking forward to presenting this report. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity, I guess. Yeah, I'll just get straight into it.
I just would mention, as well as being his first time presenting in the committee, for those of you who are not aware, Amantha, who has led and provided great leadership and development of our community transport area, recently resigned. So Topik is right on your own, but leading this for Amantha.
Absolutely. Just want to acknowledge Amantha's great contribution towards this work. This the fruit of all the hard work she has done. So I'm just merely presenting, in her absence. So through the chair, I would like to take this report as a read, but would like to highlight some key points. So as mentioned in the report, this is for the 2025 Community Transport Grant Fund. We have a funding amount of 500K. We received 32 applicants. Out of this, 29 been approved for the funding. And so far we allocated just over 491,000. That leaves a small allocation amount of just over $8,900, which we are recommending allocating to the Tikohanga Primary School, which is a new community-led transport service. And that's it from me, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Could you just clarify the location of that?
That's in Port Waikato.
Port Waikato?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I've got a speaking order. I have got Jen, then Gary, then Noel, then Ben.
Thank you, and welcome to Peak. Yes, Amantha was incredible in this space, and she is already missed, but big shoes for you to fill in that regard on this topic. The paper here, look, really think it's great that now that the fund is the size it is, that it was a good size for the number of applications. Look at that. The issue I have is I don't want this council to get into a phase of making decisions about who gets money at this level. So we learned this through the environmental initiatives grants, which we now have delegated authority to staff to divvy up. When there are small amounts being given out by council, it's amazing how long the conversations can become. I'd like us to stay in that higher level of funding space when we make decisions. I would like us to, as part of the policy, figure out what we do with leftover funds. That policy of does it fall into the next year's funding round? Does it go to staff discretion to divvy out, as is kind of suggested here? Because in the report there isn't enough information for me to see why that would be the place to put it, and I don't want to get down to that level. I know that Gary's going to raise that the Port Waikato community has a new idea for something that they might want to apply to this fund, and so I just don't want to get into that. But I would be quite happy for the funding that's left over to fall into next year's round, but we would have to put that in the policy probably, or I would be happy for staff delegation. That's a council decision. But I don't quite like the direction of the way that this paper is framed. There's a lot more to say in the PEC's piece about the greater policy. That's I just wanted to open with that.
Thank you, Jen.
Through the chair, Jen, thank you so much for that. I think that's sort of what we need, that advice in the later part of it on the policy thing. However, in the current policy, we do talk about that maximum grant ceiling of 20K available per application, and that has created some confusion as well. even though we reinforce it after that, that we encourage applicants to provide to operation detail, but that 20K ceiling amount can choose, and that you can see the trend. Most of them just go for 20K because that's what we say in our policy. So that sort of policy work, we need to rectify those things.
Thank you for clarifying. Gary?
Not intending to get down in the weeds as we are on deciding things, and that's no intention of that. But I've been approached by a councillor from Waikato District Council who said that the issue of the transport from Waikato is really a regional council thing, and asked that I touch base with Malcolm Beattie, who's the head of Sunset Beach Surf Life Saving in the Report Waikato, pretty much. Went through a proposal out there where it's a community-led initiative, and I see it came up on the agenda, so I thought it would be an opportune time to raise it, and it may be whether they put the application in or not at the moment. I don't know whether they are one of those 32. I have no idea, but it's not to do with the Tikahonga one. Tikahonga, remember, is about halfway between Tuaka Bridge and Port Waikato, so there's a big difference. Now, let's take this as an example, and I was going to suggest that Phil and your team could discuss it directly with them rather than me getting involved as a councillor. My place. So, but let's use it as an example. Here we are, we're wanting to get efficiency in transport right through the district and get bang for buck in communities that are further afield, and it might be Port Waikato today, it might be Taupo tomorrow, it might be Coromandel or wherever, the outreach ones. Jen has brought it to my notice this morning about elderly people trying to get hold of food parcels that cannot afford the fuel at the moment to get to town to pick up the fuel, the food parcels. Well, that sort of thing, it's really low level. What the proposal that they are wanting to do is they have a community owned 10-seater bus at Sunset Beach that is used Fridays to Monday. They are proposing to make that available to the community to use it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, to be able to pick up people in the port, Tikahonga, Onifero.
It's in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's a different one.
No, this has nothing to do with the Tikahonga.
Oh, is it the Sunset Beach Surf Life Saving Charitable Trust?
Yes.
So that it is in here, and they've received 27,000 through this application process.
I don't.
It's in here. It's in
it's in the attachment. Gary, did you want to sort of sum up where you might be going?
Is just whether this is the type of thing that should be promoted as being the most efficient way of getting decent funding out into those small communities to help them. Yeah. So people at Sunset Beach have asked me to raise it here as a question, and if it's already there.
Yeah, thanks for raising it, Gary. And maybe staff could add a little bit more detail. I'm also wondering, just for everyone's clarity, through that table, whether we could have the geographical area that is affected through because a lot of them are, some are really specific, such as Matamata, etc. But others, like the Order of St. John, I imagine they've got a really good regional spread, but just because we are a regional council, to see that spread across the region would be really good. And then constituent councillors can know where the money's going as well. But did you want to respond to Councillor Garris?
I've got it's the same issue.
Yeah, and then we'll come to,
yeah. So I saw the email that came by Gary, and I think what I'd like to see is, before a decision is made, is a check back with Malcolm Beattie and his crew at Beach, because they do have the vehicle, and whether this is an addition to what's already been approved, because from Port Waikato, a few kilometres down the road is Tikahonga. And then you go on into Tuakau. So the issue for me is they're going to be in the same space. And so to have two different funded within a couple of kilometres or thereabouts to do a similar thing. So to me, I'm looking at rationalisation across that. It's one road really from Port Waikato into town. Sorry? That's what I'm saying. So the issue is, are they two trying to do the same thing for the same group of people? So before we go any further, let's make a decision on that today and get, and I don't mind if it's at a later date staff allocator. Let's get it away, but don't have two different people competing for the same route.
So I think there are a couple of aspects to this, and we would definitely go back to Malcolm. We've said that we would respond after this conversation today. The removal of the service that ran once a week by Auckland Transport has led to Waikato District funding and service for a period of years, which has now or is about to go as a result of new contracts in that part of Auckland kicking in. We've been working with Auckland through that process, and we looked at whether the trial service that we fund between Kokano, Tuakau, and up to Pukekohe could be extended here, but because that's a low-cost, low-risk funded trial service, has a fairly short future horizon. The best approach was to see what interest there was in the community, and it's been fabulous to see two strong applications come from that community to replace the one day a week bus that Auckland Transport were providing. So we're really, really pleased to see such strong interest. And I think that these types of initiative are exactly the way that we bridge the gap between fixed route, publicly funded timetable bus services and things that meet needs. And that's been the success of community transport over the years that you've been funding the grant fund. The way, and maybe Tawfiq and Lorraine can talk about whether the applications were intended to focus on the same groups of people. I don't have that answer. But to see such strong interest is really encouraging.
To the applications, but I also just wanted to line the bow with the arrow to the conversation that we were having around integrating land use and transport, because we often focus on that and think that it happens and it works best in cities, but there are these communities, and it's right sizing what support we can provide for communities that are in place without, I guess, encouraging growth where there is no plan for growth in those areas, but still providing good transport opportunities. And in this case, it was a community that had a service that was provided by Auckland Transport that was withdrawn, and that the grant supports, as we understood it, a continuation of that service. But as Tawfiq could probably speak more clearly to, there is also another sort of community need in that area that probably wasn't being met by the previous service.
The other.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Through the chair, just a bit of background on what both applications did talk about, then I'll come back to whether we need to get them to talk to them each other, come back to one. So in terms of Port Waikato, we received two applications, one which Councillor Gary talked about for the Sunset Bee Surf Life Saving Trust Service. And their intention is to replace the discontinued bus with the twice weekly replacement that's going from Port Waikato to Pukekohe for appointments, shopping, and essential services. Whereas the Tikahonga Primary School, they wanted to have that which available anytime based on the needs as well, more goes further out in terms of medical well-being, educational need, and community need based on flexibility rather than a fixed timetable. Now, having those things, they do complement each other. I can understand your view, and the future is they could talk to each other as well, but we have to judge application on the face of it as well. So we can support in the advocacy route.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of these concerns can be addressed through the PEC's paper about the policy moving forward. Yeah, no, you don't have a mic, sorry. We'll leave the discussion for now, but yeah, it's definitely something to bring up later on today. Ben. Oh, Gary, could you turn your, thank you.
I see that the fund was set up for 200,000 in 22-23, increased to 300,000, and then finally asked me a panel 500,000. One of the concerns I think raised at the time was the cost of administration. I see here that we've now got $500,000, of which 491,000 has been spent. So what is the cost of administration and where does that get accounted for? Maybe Phil, you might want to answer that.
I can answer that. So the cost of administration is additional to the fund. It's not included in the fund. The fund gets fully allocated because that's the decision of council. So it's the administration which has to date been Amantha, so one staff member.
Well, in the past, some of the fund was allocated toward administration, and that was one of the concerns that councillors had, is that it was a lot was being chewed up. So I would like to see that there's some accounting for the admin side of this future.
Yeah, I think that was the way the numbers were presented through annual plan or long-term discussions.
And then we changed the funding.
Yeah.
Classes. There was a change.
I think that's been addressed, Ben, but we'll get some confirmation on that. I've got Liz, then Warren, then Gary R.
Yeah, look, I'm just going to congratulate the council actually and the staff, because I think the introduction of this fund a few years ago is a great thing. It just really helps communities sort out local problems, local issues, local solutions. So this is good. It has got to a substantial amount now. So review of that policy later today is a good thing. It means that we can feed into this and improve it. I think that's going to be a good thing. I kind of look at the Regional Transport Committee, and I sort of don't feel that they've had the opportunity to give another local voice to this. So I'm kind of wondering, when we talk about, timing, perhaps there's an opportunity to have this in the agenda before it comes for final sign off, just so, little local issues, if there are anything, could, it's just around the timing of getting in front of the RTC committee. So just that perhaps for next year, but otherwise, yeah, great job team. I think it's, I can see here some great local benefit and a bit of a lifeline for lots of organisations in our communities. And nice to have you back, Tawfiq. Like, yeah, we've had a little bit of a history in the past, so yeah, great to be working with you again.
Thanks, Liz. I've got Warren, then Gary. And I'm just asked Jess to put the resolution up. So we're looking for some direction on the resolution up on the screen.
Yeah, no, thanks. Just echoing Liz's comments here around the fact that it is a fantastic fund, and really happy that we did increase it up to 500,000. That obviously the region's communities do benefit largely. Just remind councillors, this is an FYI item, and as Jen commented first off, I don't think there's a need to get down into the details, that sort of thing. I certainly and also wouldn't be supportive of it going to future-proof in that space. I think this is this fund is well known, it's well advertised, and that sort of thing, and the regions and the applicants are well aware of it in that space. And I would be supportive of that extra going to that community transport Tikahanga primary school.
Yep, same here. Happy to second if you're.
Okay, we've got one more speaker, Gary R.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, look, once again, I'm supportive of it. I think it's a great idea and great initiative to get it out to the regions. Just one quick question, because some of the categories look a bit ambiguous, like Roma War Memorial Hall Society. Is it just a transport fund, or is it broader than just transport? So then, how does a Hall Society? So just
Yeah, so
yeah.
I'll let staff explain that one.
It's for the vehicle, it's just for the transport purposes.
So yeah, it is for transport.
They need to be an incorporated society or a charitable trust to be able to apply. So that they will be a charitable trust.
Yeah, to apply for the fund. Yeah, no, thank you. No.
Yeah, I haven't heard the word move and second, so I think you made an assumption if I heard, no. I didn't hear the
It
word
hasn't
move,
been
and I
recorded.
challenge that. So the issue for me is going back to item 2. I believe we need to see a rationalisation of some discussion with staff prior to actually supporting this. So I'd like to see a caveat put on that, in that referring it back to staff to discuss with the 2 entities, and if appropriate, allocate the money under staff. Yeah, because if you've got 2 community groups, strong cases, but they're going to travel the same route, and one has a vehicle already, one doesn't, it seems to me that some rationalisation needs to take place. So I'd ask the mover and seconder if the words that I missed, and I do have 2 hearing aids in today, so so I've made my point. Otherwise, I cannot support item 2, and as a constituent councillor, that would disappoint me. Thank you.
So Noel, just to clarify, so I'm clear, you would like it to go back to staff for them to have some sort of rationalisation in that area to make sure that probably the sum total would be about 50,000 going to that one area.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's 1,000 a week. So I think the 2 could work together, but I would be asking staff to facilitate that discussion. And if that can happen, then that should happen.
Yeah, just checking that is within the current policy.
No, it would sit outside the current policy, and we would have an issue as to how we were involving ourselves in this decision to provide transport. At the moment, we're allocating a community grant for purpose in line with the policy that council has. We also, as a business, run other services, and we need to, I guess, and that's all set out through our public-facing policy documents and the regional public transport plan, and probably starting to mix and muddle.
All right. No, I'm just going to.
I think we'd ask staff to recommend that they work together.
What I'm going to do is I propose that we take a break. We work out the wording, see what's possible, what's not possible, and then we come back looking for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, which will be up on screen. So if you have some thoughts, come up the front. Otherwise, we'll take a short break until 10:55. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.